protesting as the arts are meant to be.
Morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Hope we meet you well. Let's look at COP28 once more. It's the ongoing conference that's going on, and the president is back in the country from it. But COP28, as you know, is the United Nations Climate Change Conference. And there's been quite some talk about it, and also gains that Nigeria might have got from there. Okay, we have an expert that we'll be talking with about these matters. The one question is, how much of a environmental summit was it, and how much of a diplomatic summit was it? Or was it a hybrid of both? And at the bottom of it all, what were Nigeria's gains from that? Now, our guest is Professor Babafemi A. Badijo. He's a legal practitioner and professor of political science and international relations at Chrisland University. Professor Badijo is also former Deputy Special Representative of the Secretary General of the United Nations for Somalia. Good morning to you, sir.
Very good morning to you, Mr. Folari.
Thank you very much, sir. Yori will do, sir. Thank you very much for making time for us.
Okay, good. Very good morning, Yori.
Thank you, sir.
You are my friend. So,
Thank you very much, sir. Now, there's been quite a lot of talk on this climate change conference, and well, it should be like that because it's a very, very important conference. So, I guess what I would like to start with is to ask you for an overview of how you see, our participation in that conference. There have been all sorts of views, but let me take it from your point. And the question I asked, how much of a diplomatic outing was it, and how much of an environmental planetary sustenance outing was it?
Well, you have asked two major questions. Definitely a diplomatic outing, but at the same time, when you're looking at diplomatic outing, because it is good to try to raise our profile at the international level, which profile has been reasonably low. Every Nigerian citizen can attest to what you face trying to get visa or in relationships. I'm not talking about Japa. I'm talking about you're even wanting to go for business. You're wanting to. So a diplomatic effort in which we are showing up confidently at the international level is a very, very great benefit for us as a country, as a people. And who is best able to do that? Our chief diplomat, our president. So it was positive that he led a delegation to Dubai, which country was hosting COP28. Maybe it's important to actually tell your viewers, because people have been talking about COP. What does COP28 stand for? Conference of Parties. It is the Conference of Parties, COP, and it has been taking place annually, and this is the 28th one when it started annually. The idea of COP28 came out of the Arts Summit that took place in Brazil in 1992, during which time the whole world came to the conclusion that we cannot continue the way we are doing in terms of the environment and the problems that we are bound to face if we continue the way we are doing because of the climatic situations that was gradually changing on all of us. So that led to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. So, but the highest level of discussion, because discussions continue under the auspices of the UNFCCC regularly, and there are other bodies that have been set up and others are still being set up to practicalize the convention that was the outcome of the Rio Summit of 1992. So, in effect, our concern is one of how do we leave the world a better place for ourselves and for children yet unborn by reducing the warming of the global warming largely. And we've been on that for quite a while now. And we can talk about some of the substance of what's involved with respect to the global warming problem, which is facing different parts of the world differently, in which case we need to pay attention to the different interests that are involved when you're talking about climate change. But the whole focus is climate change. And I hope that with efforts like yours, it will be possible for our people at large to understand the importance of climate change and its impacts on all of us. When you are having flooding taking place, scientists are telling us that the problem of global warming and other associated problems that are changing the situation on our planet are affecting why we are having flooding, desertification, which are two crucial things affecting us, because much of our country is going into desertification. Efforts are being made by our government, by others in support of Africa, international financial institutions. Many efforts are going into all that. But flooding, take your mind to the flooding of last year. Yeah. The flooding of last year resulted in the deaths of about 600 Nigerians. More also crucial is the fact that much of the food that had been planted and were growing and to be harvested last year disappeared with the flood. Not countless animals disappeared with the flood. All those are reduction in the totality of what we have to eat with, to eat from as our produce. So if we have all this in mind, and that if we can reduce the rate of the warming of the world to not more than 1.5 Celsius of what the world was like at the beginning of industrialization, then we will be doing a lot of good. Of course, natural disasters will always be there. We as a people and as a country are expected to provide, to predict and be ready with the resilience. Of course, last year we failed the 600 people who died and many of us whose lives were dislocated fundamentally because some of the things that we could have done were not done. The Lagdo Dam in Cameroon was as a result of an agreement with us to build the Dan Hausa Dam on our own side of the territory, which was to be like 3 times of the Lagdo Dam, and money was voted for it, but it all disappeared the way we do our business in Nigeria, and no dam has been built. Yes, the problem we had, the water would have gone into the dam. It wouldn't have devastated us down the line. But not only being able to provide infrastructure, we're also to be looking at what can we do to reduce the impact of global warming and in effect, so the focus is larger than the focus that we have been debating.
Okay.
Of course, we have been debating the question of how many people went to Dubai. And I think that's an important question to also handle and deal with. Yes, there might have been some exaggeration in terms of what was being focused on by Nigerians, but I think it's one that we should be frank with ourselves and learn from, because at the end of the day, I hope that investigative journalists will have the opportunity to visit the website of the UNFCCC at the end of the conference and do an analysis on who ended up going. The federal government finally told us that it sponsored 422 people. Of course, to do what? That it sponsored 422. It's even sacrilegious.
Sorry, sir. We can come back to this point, but because of all that, what you've just said, I wanted to take you back to the beginning where I asked how much of a diplomatic effort as opposed to an environmental effort was it. And my mind here was on the fact that, look, the Western world, the highly industrialized countries of the world, their footprint, their carbon footprint is infinitely larger than us. And arguably, they hold much more of the blame for the situation that Earth finds itself in. Now, there are those who have been talking about, isn't Africa, Nigeria included, aren't we in a position to be compensated if we were to talk about these things diplomatically? Because their advancement has been at the cost of, stability and security of the planet on our side here. I don't know, what do you think of that particular viewpoint? Because
okay,
sure.
Okay, there's no problem. I'm going to definitely get to that because it's important and it's something that is constantly being negotiated. It's not totally decided, but we should address ourselves to the efficiency of our representation when we send people out.
All right.
And how many. COP27, the Conference of Parties last year, had about 169 Nigerians, 130 male, 39 female. And we were able to negotiate within all that the issue with other people, the question of loss and damage, which is one of the things that are now coming in as probable benefits to address what you are talking about. So what did we need federally funded 422 people for? That's a point that you should have at the back of your mind. And then the 422 federally funded people, you're talking about presidency, Ministry of Environment, and co, and all the rest of it. You are not talking about the state governments who found their way into the need to be in Dubai and what they were also. I'm not saying it is wrong for them to be in Dubai because they also have diplomatic and other interests that they can. And some of them will tell you we are looking for investors. Okay. Then there are the parastatals. All those, when you put all that together, the three that I've mentioned so far are still largely money of the federal government of Nigeria. So the smarties of trying to say 422, we should get that very clear that we should learn to be efficient in our representation. And I want to tell you also, I know that an important Nigerian invited by the IAEA could not find a seat in the Ministry of Environment, our former Director General of the Energy Commission of Nigeria, former Vice Chancellor in two places, first-class engineer, now chairman of the renewable energy process. Several things, but he was not given a place. Now, but then We have so many, 67 from the presidency. We should learn. It's an important issue, but we should learn from it and not just push it aside. Now, on your particular question, I had mentioned the fact that the rest of the world, Africa inclusive, and in fact, the smaller countries like Barbados with Madam Motley, who has been becoming more or less the spokesperson for the developing countries, there was an understanding that 100 billion would be used annually to address the problem that you are talking about, that is providing for countries that didn't cause the problem that we have today, countries that are not even producing anything near what countries like United States and the rest of Europe, as well as China, India to some extent, are throwing into the global warming and are developing, but wanting to reduce the rate of development because we need energy. We need a mixture of energy to be able to move forward. So all these are being negotiated. A mechanism, the Warsaw mechanism, was set up to try to look at the raising of some of these funding and how to, but the developed countries are not coming on strongly. This was a major issue at the COP26 in Glasgow, and it still continued in COP27, and negotiations are continuing on how to improve on this money that is to help the transition that the developing countries of Africa, Nigeria, and Asia will be faced. Because important Nigeria in particular is that we are finding out from scientists that fossil fuels are the major problem in global warming. And fossil fuels, you're talking about coal, you're talking about oil, the mainstay of our economy, and you're talking about gas. And so the developed countries are talking about phasing out this. Of course, the rate at which each one constitutes a problem differs. It's not that everything is the same. Coal has been pushed aside for a while by a number of countries, but you saw, and that's the question of interest, you saw that Germany and co, when they had the problem of energy as a result of the Ukraine war and as a result of the sabotage of Nord Stream 1 and 2, which made it impossible even for Russia to supply their needs in gas, they went back to their coal that they had said that they weren't going to be touching again, and said it's just for a temporary, and everybody kept quiet. If it had been in any of the developing countries, it would be all hell would be let loose. Yeah. But that's a question of the amount of power you have to be able to have your way. If you have all the power in the world and you can dictate to other people, well, that's it. But we need to be prepared for the fact that they are saying that we have to phase out the use of oil and gas, but we are insisting and arguing for a phasing down as opposed to a phase out. Because if we have to phase out automatically by now, it's a question of what capacities do we have in the energy mix that has been agreed upon since 1976, that it's a mixture that is required, fossil fuels, solar, other renewable energy plants, hydro, wind, it's all these
Yes.
nuclear. Some people are also insisting, but
One moment, sir.
debates.
One
Yes.
moment, Prof. Wasn't it in this regard, because it was reported by the Minister of Information that the President Tinubu, hosted a high-level meeting with stakeholders on the, and investors on Nigeria's carbon market and the electric buses rollout, that kind of thing, buttressing what you've just said about, maybe just a phasing down as opposed to a phasing out, because we simply don't have that capacity. I don't know. And then so many deals were reported to have been, well, not so many, but at least an important one between Germany and Nigeria, among other things. I'm looking here at the Nigeria Carbon Market Activation Plan, co-chaired by the Executive Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the Director General. Yes, and the Director General of the National Council on Climate Change, Dr. Dahiru Salisu. Surely these were moves in the in the right direction.
Oh, don't get me wrong. By saying that we were not efficient in our representation, it's not that I'm saying that it was not worth our going.
Okay.
So we must be clear on that. There is no doubt that a number of things are being achieved, because the process is still going on till December 12th, being achieved, and your flyer says postmortem. We can only do postmortem at the end of it all as to what carried, what didn't carry, how did we perform, and all the rest of it. Today, many possibilities exist if you are really want to run a lean government. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that nothing was achieved. You cannot be asking people to tighten their belt, and then you took 422 people, and state governments took their own, parastatals took their own, all on the money, and then you say that we should tighten. That's all I'm still saying. I have no problem about the things that you have pointed out. I noted the fact that the president pointed out about these 100 buses.
Yes.
I believe a donation that came from these fossil fuel people as he came into office. I also note the fact that there is a lot of effort that is going towards compressed natural gas that is being put in place. Yes, you spoke about Germany and Nigeria. This is something that started under Buhari. If not mistaken, the deal was probably one of the problems that Nigeria, in terms of our profligate traveling, could not allow the Nigerian ambassador in Germany to sign the agreement. Late Abba Kyari had to go with the minister. So I'm saying that there is a continuous effort that has been going on how to address this problem, how to deal with our own national determined contributions, NDC. That is our document that is showing what we are doing, what we can do to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, the carbon dioxide, and some of the creative ways that people have come up with is, if you can keep your forests, they will be able to take in more of the carbon dioxide in the environment.
Yes.
And we will have a lesser situation of warming. That is the carbon market you are talking about. That but the reality of it is we need to develop, and the pressure to advance and be in a position to have the needed infrastructure in terms of road connections and all the rest of it that are still there would decimate some of these areas that are existing. But you find out that a trend seems to also be starting that we need to be aware and awake and be worried about, and that is the fact that some other countries are coming to buy on lease huge portions of Africa for their own carbon emission plans later in the future. One that is going on, a lot is being said, is that what UAE has bought a fifth of the land in on lease, land in Zimbabwe, 10% of the forest in Liberia, a number, and all those places put together, they're saying larger than United Kingdom. And of course, they are trying to now quantify the carbon reduction that would be taking place, the import of biodiversity. It's difficult to explain many of these things in 1 hour, yes. But I'm trying because I'm seeing that there is a problem in our country. We submit nationally determined contributions, but most of our people don't know anything about what is going on. Even let me tell you, it's not a secret. During the last election, none of the three candidates knew anything about all these problems. The president now does, after being in office. Obi was dismissive of the whole talk, in spite of his supposed sagacity. Don't even talk about our former vice president. But both candidates, Jagaban and Obi, were governors. To what extent have their states been conscious? Sanwo-Olu, I understand, went to Dubai for this current one. I hope that he will come back, and with my own governor, Abiodun, I hope they will come back and they will be thinking of what is to be their own contributions in letting people know about the need for them to reduce carbon emissions and what projects and plans that they can key into. A lot of money stands to be made.
Okay, sir.
I mentioned
I beg your pardon, Prof.
Yes.
Professor, I beg your pardon.
Yes.
At this stage, I've got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Please stay with us.
Sometimes it's the story that calls. At other times, the people